Vestiges After Dark is a philosophical speculation program sponsored by the Holy Nicolayan Catholic Church, an independent Catholic church inspired by the diversity of early Christianity and in communion with the Old Catholic Church. Presiding Bishop Brian Willett presents perspectives on esotericism, metaphysics, philosophy, psychology, paranormal research, theology, spirituality, religion, and Catholicism. We are not affiliated with the Church of Rome. Our discussions of Catholicism are broader than, and distinct from, the Church of Rome. The views and opinions expressed are those of the individual participants.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be for all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth. Welcome to Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Brian Willett, coming to you live from the deep woods of western Georgia on this May 5th, 2026. Well, so many of us spend our time yapping at God, demands and complaints and God knows what else, right? But how many of us actually learn how to listen to God? And oftentimes that can only be achieved through meditation. We're going to discuss that with a brand new guest tonight on Vestiges After Dark. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Vestiges After Dark. Once again, I am your host, Bishop Brian Willett, with my co-host, Jamie Wolf.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
And we're back this week with a brand new topic, brand new guests. I always like when that's the case. We've never really done an episode on meditation before.
Nope,
I don't
no,
think.
I'm looking forward to it.
We've covered it a few times, but only loosely. We've never really focused on it. So that's coming up in hours 2 and 3. So make sure that you don't leave us, because you're going to miss a great topic tonight. It's going to really be fascinating, and I think potentially very helpful to a lot of you. I know I get a lot of questions about meditation and how to do it correctly, how to kind of quiet that monkey brain and be able to actually achieve some kind of progress in the work of meditation. A lot of people get stuck on the mental chatter. So we'll talk about techniques and all of that, and take your questions, of course, all across the various platforms, whether you are listening on Instagram or Facebook, or watching on YouTube and Facebook. Regardless of where you are, our moderators are checking all of the various chats around the internet. You can even call into the show. We'll have that number up on the screen in the second hour. Okay, so we are looking forward to this tonight. Joining us, though, from Australia, we have Father Chris Yates. How you doing tonight, Father?
Yeah, I'm good. A bit tired. My wife's in a different time zone at the moment, so I'm kind of splitting my days between Australia and Western Europe. So I'm kind of a bit strung out. So I might actually be better today for the audience. I might be a bit calmer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, you'll be more like me probably. So, even though I'm not doing the traveling and I'm not doing all the the different time zones, I feel like I, for all intents and purposes, pretty much do anyway, because my bedtime is whenever I finally can get to sleep, which can be at any time of the day, really.
Well, I'm also a great example of how men in fact need women to civilize them.
I know we do kind of go to shit when we don't have somebody to balance us in our life.
Go to mush, man. Just go to mush.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true.
And actually, apart from that, I've been playing with AI. So
okay.
I've kind of avoided it forever, and then obviously you've had a couple of shows on it, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to get my head around this sooner or later. And now I'm like coding on my desktop, building teams of people to help me. So I've gone from I know absolutely nothing about it to I'm now, I don't know, I think it's probably a bit like a video game. I'm kind of obsessing over it and seeing some real benefit to it. But it's off topic now, but it highlights to me how much you actually need to know some things before you start playing with AI.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tool, and it is a tool that, I think requires a certain amount of wisdom to use correctly, just like most powerful things, right? You wouldn't want to give a gun to a toddler and say, hey, just go have fun with it.
No.
You want wisdom to be sort of the part of these powerful things. But it doesn't,
I feel like Jamie, had a firearm on her when she was in a pram. I feel like
she might have. It's possible. Was it loaded though? That's the question.
I've been around firearms my entire life. That's all I'm going to say.
But really,
am I carrying one now? That's what you should ask.
Oh, well, that's not
and the
really.
answer is,
It's not even a question, right? The fact of the matter is, powerful tools don't make them bad, right? They don't make things good or evil. It just means
neutral.
that they're
The tool is only as good as the handler.
Yeah, and wisdom is really what basically decides whether or not it's being used correctly. So, I think AI is like that. I'm not afraid of AI. I think it can definitely cause a lot of problems, but not like anything else in the world that hasn't already. Every invention causes problems. Any movement of progress causes problems. It's why you need wisdom to kind of temper the effects of progress. We shouldn't stop progress just because, things change and things can sometimes get worse for a while. It's really up to us. Personal responsibility, that's what it's all about. Joining us also from Tennessee, we have April Narad tonight. How you doing, April?
I'm good. So happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also Taco Tuesday.
Well, I had a burrito tonight.
Thing. I did not.
It was a little cold though. It didn't get to me very hot. I was a little upset about that, but other than that, it was very good.
You should write a complaint to the management.
I am. Oh, I definitely am, because I left them a pretty nice tip too, and they didn't take care of me.
It's the 6th of May here, so I don't know what you're on about.
Yeah, well, you live in the future, Father. You live in the future,
It's true.
It's May the 6th.
Yeah, you can tell us
tomorrow for
we
us.
We missed May the 4th be with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Well, the 5th is actually more important anyway. You know why?
Why?
Because Star Wars sucks now, so.
Easy. Easy. I mean, I am a purist. But I get what you're saying.
I mean,
X, we can't
We'll
move on.
see when the new Mandalorian movie comes out.
well, I mean,
in a
Tracy
few
and I
days.
have debated that one, and if we don't go see it, it will be the first Star Wars movie we've never gone seen in theaters on opening night.
Well, they've done the series well, so we'll see if they do the movie well.
Well, yeah, the series was, I mean, the last season was okay, but the series was okay. I mean, it was pretty good.
The trailer looks all right.
It looks
does.
okay. It looks like it has potential. We'll probably go see it. Hear that, Tracy? I think we need to put it on the schedule. She's listening out there, I'm sure. Okay.
She
She's
is.
left because of your criticism of her cooking. She's gone.
Oh, no.
She's out the door.
No. She's good. All right. Let's go ahead and get started with questions from the ether. April, what craziness do you have for us tonight?
Well, I was wondering, I sent you a list. I thought about starting from the bottom instead of the top this time with a question that came from YouTube. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, go ahead and do that. Yeah, go ahead and do that one. I think I know the one you're talking about.
So there was some discussion on YouTube about one of the shorts you did, and it was when you were talking about the afterlife. And there was one person had said that the resurrection of Jesus is proof of life after death. And another says we are electric beings, and when alive, the electricity binds the soul to the body. And when we die, the electricity stops flowing and the soul is released. So I didn't know if you wanted to maybe speak to that a little bit.
Well, I mean, look, you have to look at these things from the vantage point of what arena of what arena of truth do you want to speak to?
It sounds pretty.
I mean, theologically, yeah, you could say that the resurrection of Jesus is proof of life after death, but I mean, that's not going to prove anything scientifically or historically. This is something that would not convince an atheist or even an agnostic, for that matter. So, I think we have to. Look, anytime you put anything on the internet, right, particularly shorts of this show, where they're only getting like one little 30-second clip of a 3-hour philosophical conversation, you get all of the armchair experts that come out of the woodwork to educate you and throw out their statements of authority. I don't quite understand the motivation, because, if I were to go to a channel or, be able to watch something on someone's channel and then, they comment on what they shared, unless I'm an expert, like an actual expert in the content, and I found that they said something that is in error, the first thing I wouldn't say would be to just spew out my opinion on the subject. I just wouldn't do that. But that's what you get when you do it on social media today. So you get all these opinions. So I guess to the first person, if you're a person of faith, then sure, yeah, Jesus, I guess, proves life after death for you. If you're not a person of faith, that's not going to mean a thing. So I'm not sure that's really a good answer for that particular issue. I don't know quite what the video was, though. Do you remember what the video was that they were commenting on?
The only thing I remember it was when you were talking about the afterlife, but I'm sure it had to do with one of the questions from the ether that we had talked about previously, but I couldn't remember specifically which one it was.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we talk about afterlife all the time on this show. So yeah, I would say that would be the way that I would respond to that, is that, Jesus is good for a person of faith, but it's not going to be a complete answer. If you're trying to speak to everybody, and particularly if you're using the word proof, because proof is kind of irrelevant to faith. I wouldn't say it's in contradiction to faith. I'd say it's irrelevant to faith. If you've got faith, you don't really need proof of anything, right? So that's my answer to that one. As far as the second one about energy, it was about energy breaking free of the body. Oh, I think I remember the video now. That just sparked my memory. We were talking about how just because, when New Agers say that proof of afterlife is that the second law of thermodynamics that states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Yeah, and they say that this proves it because we're made up of energy. But I countered that and said energy doesn't have to maintain cohesion. Yeah, the energy doesn't get destroyed, but the cohesion does. Cohesion absolutely can be destroyed. So and I think the example I gave on that show was that we're made up of millions, billions of well, maybe even trillions of atoms and molecules, right? And that's an energy system that maintains cohesion throughout the course of your life. But when you die, and things start to decompose, well, all of that breaks down, all those molecules, everything. I mean, the energy just gets dissipated out into the earth. So yeah, it doesn't get destroyed, but the cohesion's gone. What made you is gone. So I think the person was trying to counter that, but the fact of the matter is, it's not really a counter. They're just spewing a typical New Age opinion. Oh, we're made up of energy, and the energy is always out there. That doesn't prove anything. So, again, that was, I think, we were talking in a metaphysical context that particular evening. It wasn't theological. Otherwise, the conversation would have been different. And it wasn't really scientific because, well, you can't really be scientific about life after death, can you? So the real only way that you can talk about this is to understand metaphysically what has been taught, what all the religions seem to agree on. And certainly every religion seems to have some concept of there being more than just this existence. I think that speaks volumes in terms of proof. And when you really break it down, I think Father Chris said it best once. When you really break it down, no, you did, you really did. Because we get accused, people of faith get accused often of inventing religion because we're afraid of death. And I'm like, well, religion would probably be the last thing you want to invent if you're living out of fear, because it really gives you more to be worried about.
Accountability after you've died.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's not fear that generated these opinions or these concepts. These are things that the ancients have connected with. And see, here's my contention on it. Here's my contention. I feel that we were far more connected to this reality before we became distracted by modernity, and with all of the technology and the advancements and the AI and all that stuff, internet and television.
It's not even an argument.
I mean, and then who knows what all this energy in the air now from, I'm not a 5G conspiracy theorist.
Cell towers.
I don't believe in that, but I will recognize though that when you're putting all this energy out into the atmosphere that was never there before, that has to probably have some effect on how our brains work or how our behavior is. I mean, certainly when people have been subjected to high EMF environments, they don't do well. So clearly the body is sensitive, whether we consciously feel it or not. And so as far as I'm concerned, I think that has also disconnected us largely from this greater spiritual reality that the ancients were far more in tune with. So I think we need to trust the fact that our ancestors, regardless of which religion they practiced and which culture they came from, all had a framework for this thing we call the afterlife. Is it what we think it is? Is it exactly what each particular religion teaches? I think each religion teaches parts of it, and I think some do a far better job than others. But I think even Christianity itself, if you talk to a real honest Christian theologian, they're not going to say this is exactly what it is. Jesus.
Can I come in on this?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I think what you said is so important, because I mean, I'm not going to name names, but in a very recent pastoral encounter, I know somebody who has been dying for 15 years. Now, I know that sounds mad, but it's kind of, they've got this disease that they keep inventing new drugs. And so it gets, and this person is sort of an avowed atheist, married to a non-atheist. And there's been a bit of a struggle. Well, he met up with a Jewish friend of his, and he was very excited about this and talking to me. And he said, "Oh, I love it because Jews don't believe in an afterlife."
It's not true at all.
And well, it's not true, but actually there is an essence of truth in what was being said, because there's so much damage done by this sort of unthinking. Oh, the afterlife is, and we've talked about it on the show before. You have all your favorite donuts, and you can pet all your favorite dogs, and this sort of really reduced image of what perfection looks like.
Oh yeah,
because it's limited by our own ideas of what perfection is, including all of us. Doesn't matter how sophisticated we are, we're not perfect compared to God. And so I said, look, Christians don't really believe, or Christian theology or the revelation of God doesn't tell us that an afterlife is this preconceived thing that we have Hollywood films about and TV shows, but that it's about returning to God, and we don't fully know what that looks like. We've just had, the essence of it given to us, like in the Book of Revelation or in other
always metaphorically given to us.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what you said is really important, because I think the sort of the Hollywood version of what heaven's like is actually a real, like, I think that's generated more atheists than most other things.
Yeah.
Oh, I
agree.
wouldn't believe that either.
No, and I've even said that. It's like, when an atheist says that, you believe in your sky daddy and all this stuff, it's like, no, I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't believe in that kind of God either. The concepts that these atheists object to, when I'm talking to an atheist, I said, the concepts that you object to, I object to as well. So yeah, I mean, if I didn't know that there was another wealth of data to draw from, I'd probably be atheist too, based upon just the limited knowledge that you seem to have about the subject. And they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to be challenged that way. But I try to introduce a conversation. And the basis of what I do is I said, stop trying to believe in things. Stop trying to, believe in theology or whatever it is that you're trying to find. How about you just academically, as almost a scientist would, simply study what the ancients taught philosophically. Just do that. Start there. And from that point forward, faith will find you along the way, because once you've gone down that journey of philosophy, you're going to have to face some really hard decisions that atheism is going to fail to complete. And that's kind of how I handle it with people that are in that camp, because that's how I did it. I mean, I'm a very rational person, okay? I'm an objective person. I am not one to easily believe in things. I have to have some kind of framework for it, and having also a psychological background and understanding how archetypes work, and being very much influenced by Carl Jung, it's very easy to dismiss, and even my Buddhist background, it's very easy to dismiss these NDEs and everything that people talk about as just phantoms of the brain, things that fire at death.
Nope.
It's easy to dismiss those things. But when you look at it from the vantage point of how philosophy developed, and I'm one that says that as far as, we had spiritual beliefs that go back older than philosophy, but philosophy is older than religion, at least in the organized sense of modernity today, in the way that we recognize religion today. Not speaking of animism or pantheism or some of these more primitive forms, but talking about sophisticated religion, where there's a code of ethics and systems, and philosophy is older than that. Philosophy is what produced that, as evidenced by the fact that Plato and Aristotle heavily influenced what became a Christian belief. And we've talked about that on the show. And so I think the easiest way for an atheist or an agnostic, and I'm speaking to any of you out there that might be listening to the show and feeling like this, that's the way you begin. If you're really honest, if you're one of those atheists where you just think it's bullshit because you want to think it's bullshit, and you want to buck the system because we're all just a bunch of idiots in your mind, I mean, that's fine. There's no talking to someone like you. Mm-mm. So this isn't a good show for you. This isn't a good channel for you, and I'm not the right bishop to talk to you. But if you are one of those atheists that came to this conclusion because you're struggling to find evidence beyond what your five senses tell you, well, then this is the approach that you want to take. Start with the philosophy, and then, and it might take decades of philosophy before you start to realize that it opens up another door to something that you didn't even know existed before. And I'm not talking about, weird, twisted spiritual experiences and mysticism. I'm talking about understanding how the theology that we have that became the religions that you reject have their basis in very solid philosophy that does speak to logical conclusions that pretty much require there to be more than what is, okay? Far more than what can be observed. And that's where you start. You don't have to start with believing in God or, believing that Jesus died for your sins. This is where the past, these evangelicals are going to try to throw at you. And you're going to reject that outright. And rightfully you should. Because you're not being given the foundation to really even be able to use that data. You need something far more rudimentary than that, something far more stable than that, before you can actually approach that and say, oh, now I get it. Okay. And that's the problem, is that people want you to have faith first, but a person that is objective and rational needs foundation before faith, and then faith can grow from that foundation. And I know this because I am this. This is how it works for me, and I'm sure if you're honest, it will work for you too. So that's how I'd answer that, April. I don't know if there's more to it than that, but we can get to the next question if you want.
Okay. The next question, I'm going to go from the bottom up. So it talks about, it says, my parents have this year-long study book on the names of God. But if we're to be more precise, based on linguistics, doesn't God only have one name, the tetragrammaton, and numerous titles and descriptive phrases like El Shaddai and Adonai?
Okay, so yeah, God has many, many names. The
Prince of Peace.
Yeah, well,
Emmanuel.
That's it. And see, your Father Chris already knows where we're going with this one. The reality is that for the Christian, and since this is a book that's being read by Christians with a Christian context, I think I need to speak to that. Okay, the tetragrammaton, this was the revelation as it was understood in the times before God revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ. But the Holy Trinity is now a far more fuller revelation than the tetragrammaton. So we really don't need to worry about the names of God in the same way that it was important back then, because we've been given a far more complete, far more intimate, far more useful and accessible revelation as Christians in the personhood of Jesus Christ. As another example of this very thing, a lot of people say, well, doesn't the Bible prohibit images? Why do you have images of Jesus? It's like, because God became man and gave himself an image. So now we can depict that. Prior to that, there was no image you could give God, but now we have one. So that's what's depicted. And this is the kind of mindset, is that God is slowly but always revealing himself to us. And that revelation hasn't stopped. I mean, that's the foundation of my entire spiritual praxis, is that revelation doesn't end just because, Jesus came and now we've got the New Testament. Now that's it. That's all we need. No, the Holy Spirit's constantly speaking to us, and we should be constantly listening for that. I mean, that's kind of a good question for tonight's show, because even though we're going to be taking this subject from a meditation standpoint in the next hour, it's still very applicable to Christians to understand that the listening factor is far more important than all of the mental mental gymnastics that we go through to practice our faith. Not that there's no value in that, but yeah, there's a deficit when it becomes reduced down to just that. Like Father Chris was talking in the last question about, the heaven and how we've really simplified it. I mean, when you really talk to someone, you say, well, what's heaven like? And they're talking about being able to see their pets again. I understand the motivation for fulfilling loss that you've sustained, maybe loss that still feels like loss. I get it. Pets are an important part of our lives, and it does hurt when you lose them. But I mean, if you're going to reduce heaven down to just seeing pets again, I mean, you're not even in the ballpark, my friend. You're not even in the ballpark of what awaits you. I mean, that's kind of like, I don't know. It is so incomplete. And so now when we have these names of God and all this stuff, it is so easy to just say, oh, that's a complex, Kabbalistic, all these names of God. It's like, but why do you need them all? Why is that so important now that God has revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ? Why is that important now? Now that we have understanding of the Holy Trinity, why is that important now? So I would say, yeah, God has a lot of names, but it's all irrelevant. All that information's irrelevant now. It's why, we don't have to be like the Jews do, where they even like write the G_D.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to risk, out of a disrespect offense. And it's like, but we don't have to worry about that as Christians because God has revealed himself to us intimately. We know him in ways that go far and beyond a name. And that's what's important. So again, I get frustrated when people write books like this because it's just a bunch of intellectual diarrhea. And it doesn't do a damn thing for your salvation.
Yeah, it's like a word salad.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, I mean, that's my opinion on it. Maybe there's some good information there from a historical standpoint, but if you're looking at it as a framework for faith building, I think it's going to lead you astray. Honestly, that's just the way I would categorize it. I don't know, Father. I don't know if did we lose you? I don't know if he's still with us, but oh, there he is. Okay.
I'm here. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
I had a knock on the door. I was not expecting.
Oh, okay.
So I was just going to say, it also depends on the purpose. Like, if what you're doing is writing a university essay or a theological textbook or an Episcopal doctrinal statement on something, then what we call God really matters a lot. Like, we've had ecumenical councils to discern who God is, how to speak of the Trinity. That's really important. But if what we're doing in a text is we're dreaming, or we're writing poetry, or a love song, or we're within a pastoral context where we already know the doctrine, like. This is the thing, right? We're not supposed to worship doctrine. We're supposed to worship God. Doctrine tells us who God is, and it's really important. But it's supposed to be the gateway to better relationship with God. It's not supposed to be the relationship,
right?
And so if I'm hanging out with this is why it's great to be in a church, right? And hanging out with my friends at church, especially something like the Catholic Church, the Orthodox churches, we're not arguing about doctrine. The doctrine is set. So when we say God, we all know what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about that God that became a man and that's present on the altar. So and this is what you get reflected in the scriptures. Read the Psalms. Read the Gospels. Everlasting. Prince of Peace, Emmanuel. All these terms for God are absolutely fine. But what we're not, where people go wrong, especially in the esoteric world, is they'll focus on one, esoteric name for God and then build an entire
lifestyle out of it. Religion. Yeah.
So that's the balance, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about technically how has God revealed himself and what are the technical doctrinal ways to speak of God? Well, read the Creed of St. Athanasius. Good luck to you, by the way. But actually, you should read it. I read it every year. It's great.
Every year.
But it would be pretty exhausting if every time, Bishop Brian and I in conversation or with any of you said, referred to God and we started saying, oh, well, very good, very God of very God. And, the Father is not the Son and the Son is not the Father and the Son is not the Spirit. All these things would be technically true, but it would be impenetrable to have an actual conversation about things. And so it depends on the context.
One thing that really frustrates me is these evangelicals that will come after you and be like, where Jesus wasn't his name. Stop using that. His name was Yeshua. It's Yeshua is the name that has power, not Jesus. You know, I've heard this. I've been told this, and I mean, it takes everything within my power to not have a very stern reaction.
Because God can't understand linguistic.
No, he doesn't get it, right? I guess he's deaf and dumb. I mean, they've reduced God to a point where he's almost incompetent. I mean, honestly.
Well, they've also not read the Tower of Babel story.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that one's missing from the lexicon.
But I suspect there's a lot they've not read.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit catty.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, it's not wrong.
Can't
it's
argue
not
with
wrong.
the facts.
I mean, it's evidenced by the behavior. I mean, you know, Christ said, "You know them by their fruits." Well,
What fruits?
you know what fruits? You know exactly what fruits. All you've got there is a bunch of nuts. All right, what's our next one, April?
The next question is, what is the Avignon papacy?
The Avignon papacy. Yeah, that's
Papacy.
that's the 60 or 70 years or so during the medieval period where the popes actually were left Vatican City and lived in France for a while, and were subject to under strong influence of the French crown, which was a part of the medieval power play of that time. I mean, the Pope, you know, was his own power player, in a way, his own ruler of his own kingdom. But, you know, whoever controlled the Pope really controlled the world, at least the medieval world at the time. So France was, of course, very interested in this and took advantage of certain instabilities that were occurring in Rome at the time. So this is what that is referring to. It was only about 60 or 70 years. And then, of course, the popes returned and have never gone back. Thank God. You can actually go and tour the place where they lived. It still exists.
There was the year of the three popes. I mean, because part of the Avignon papacy is, you know, they had to move there because the barbarians, you know, sacked the city.
Yeah.
The Visigoths were coming.
Yeah.
And then there were, you know, there's been periods in history where there's been, you know, more than one claimant to the papal throne, shall we say?
Yeah, there was a little of that going on, and you know, I mean, and it was advantageous to have the Pope in your own kingdom, you know, because you could keep him close, and that could lend him to your
as an
whims.
Englishman, I have to say you can never trust a friend, so you know they can't be there.
Particularly in the Middle Ages.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the you know, you guys look. I mean, the English have a very interesting royal history when you go through the first King of England all the way to the present day. But I mean, it's tame compared to the French version of that story. I mean, those are some really messed up people.
Why it survived, unlike the French.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's very true. And even though I do enjoy French, the French art, I still think the old, you know, just give me a basic castle, basic English castle, make me much happier. I like the Spartan look. I think
Nice Norman castle.
Yeah, I like that. I think they were a little more down to earth. The English were, you know, not that they didn't. You had some really weird kings. You did, but I mean,
the English barons were obviously a lot harder on kings than the French ones were.
Yeah,
the French kings had to run away with themselves, whereas never. I mean, and yeah, you've had of course your king in the United States last week, and you're all swooning and realizing that having a non-political head of state has some advantages.
Don't give Trump any ideas.
Yeah. But you know, it's
no swooning here.
A lot of the sort of projection onto monarchy. There is a theological element to this, of course, but the projection onto that the English ever had an absolutist monarchy is just not true. I mean, even Henry VIII was a lunatic, but he couldn't just do what he wanted. You know, I mean, the English have had that, which the Americans have taken on. I mean, the rebellion in America is a reflection of this. You know, in that case, it really wasn't King George, but Parliament oversteps its mark, and the people in America, being true Englishmen, said no bloody way. You know, and so I love that. I think that in France that was not the case.
Yeah. I love medieval history, and it's really a fun thing to explore, to kind of see how we ended up where we're at. You know, and it's kind of hard to believe in And I mean, no offense to anybody in Europe, but it's hard to fathom the strength of Europe in that time compared to what it has become. Yeah.
Please, I'll cry. Don't.
I mean, it makes you cry. It makes you cry.
I can't.
When you compare the two worlds.
I'm worried about my Germany.
Yeah.
My beloved Germany.
Can't do it.
Yeah. Maybe we need to bring feudalism back. It might be better than this, right?
It's definitely better than that.
Yeah, I know, right? And it wasn't that good, but it's a lot better than this. All right. What's our next one, April? I mean, unless there's more to that one. Did you have a question about the Avignon papacy that was relevant to this, or did you just want to know what it was?
It was just one of the questions that was on the network.
Was it because of the Trump comment? I guess that's where that came from.
Yeah, I think that's why it got posted.
Apparently, the Trump administration threatened a cardinal or something with the Avignon papacy.
I missed that cluster poo.
I think it was the Pope that he actually threatened.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was a throwaway line.
He's not going to threaten anybody. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the implication was. It was like, well, look, you were displaced before. We can displace you again. Was that what was the? I don't know what they were trying to say.
I'm not privy to this one.
Yeah, you don't know about that one.
It's all a confected row. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
The speech that they were objecting to of the Pope had been written 2 weeks before. Like the whole thing is just a furphy. Sorry, that's a very Australian saying. Furphy. It's well, we used to say in the police LOB, which means not very true.
Yeah. Not very true is right. All right. What's our next one?
Next question is, we had Bible study last night, and a question was brought up: are preachers, priests, bishops, and teachers who teach the Word of God judged at a higher standard in the eyes of the Father than others who are not teachers? And this was pulled from James 3:1.
Okay, well, I mean, James 3:1 kind of answers the question when it makes it very clear that those that are entrusted to the proclamation of the gospel are expected, exceptionally expected to maintain a certain sense of responsibility that perhaps exceeds what the normal expectation would be for someone else. I mean, it kind of goes back to when Jesus said, those to whom much is given, much is expected. I think there's truth to this in that same way. It is the obligation, though, of every Christian to proclaim the gospel. I mean, that's not just something that priests are expected to do, or teachers even. Everyone has an obligation to the gospel, just different roles within that, but always to the gospel. So I think really what is happening with people that worry about this kind of thing is that they're worried about that word judgment, that appears there. And again, we have to understand that judgment in theological terms is not judgment as we tend to think of it today. Judgment today seems like, a judge that issues a sentence for wrongdoing. That is not the kind of judgment that is really being expressed in the gospel in that same way. We may use that same imagery. It might be a very similar archetype, but it's not the same meaning. Because ultimately teachers and pastors, they're not condemned more easily because they happen to be pastors or teachers. It's the fact that they were given more responsibility, that they have to be more careful and more conscientious of what it is that they do. And that's what the judgment is. Judgment, this is one very easy way for all of you out there to try to wrap your head around God as judge, okay? Judgment Day and all these things that you hear about in Christian theology. The judge is ultimately, really in the end, it's you. It's ultimately you. You will, in a way, have to look at yourself in that big, giant cosmic mirror and decide for yourself, after you've seen yourself laid bare, fully naked, in front of yourself with nothing to hide behind anymore. Just having to look at the rawness of your nature. You have to decide when you're ready to actually move beyond those attachments. God is actually there to facilitate your salvation from your errors, and to help to purify you through that process. But ultimately, the judge really is you. It really is. And even the church teaches this in the words that it says, because I'm sure there's some Catholics out there saying, that's not right. That bishop, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I do know what I'm talking about, because even the Church of Rome's own teaching essentially states very clearly that we don't get sent to hell by God. We send ourselves to hell. And that's what this is all about. So you are your own judge. You really are.
The judgment is a real obsession of Protestant Christianity.
Yeah, it is.
In Orthodox Christianity, they call it the dread day of judgment, but they're not obsessed with the kind of. It's just a term for it, which says, well, we're going to be judged. But there's a couple of questions that lie behind how to understand this. One is, everyone's judged to the same standard because the standard is God. Now, it's true to say that the more that has been revealed to you, the more will be expected of you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because you expect more of yourself. Like, I can't pretend I've not read the things in the scriptures that I have. I can't pretend that I've not understood the teaching of Jesus, which is difficult and hard. I can't pretend I don't know it when I fail. I can only say I screwed up. But the second thing, which is even more important, who is judging you? Who is this God who's judging you? The God who's judging you is on a cross for you. So that's not to say we can just live licentiously and do whatever we want, and it doesn't matter. I'm not being a universalist in that sense. I'm talking about mature, serious people who are trying and who screw up. Who is it that's judging you? The sorts of people that would be neurotic about the judgment, right, are the very people that shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And actually, the people who are blasé about the judgment are probably the ones that need to think about things.
Well, because I find that those that always go around talking and spewing, judgment this and judgment that, are the ones that will be the first to tell you, but I'm okay because I have a personal relationship with Jesus, and I accepted him as my Lord and Savior. So they act as though they're
Westboro comes to mind right off the bat.
Yeah. They love to be able to condemn everyone else, but they themselves are squeaky clean. And so I have found that's really what happens.
Embodiment of Jesus's teaching. Don't look for the speck in your neighbor's eye, but the plank of wood in your own eye, right?
Yes.
It's a living embodiment of that. Or to put it in a if people like psychology, to say the things that annoy you about other people are the things that are of you in them that you don't like.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, there's truth to that.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I really find that, well, it's what we talked about last week. How the loudest, what our guest said, Raven, she said, are the loudest people in the room always talking about pornography or something, and then what happens?
They're the guilty with it.
They're the ones that are guilty with
Yeah.
it. So it's kind of like, we were talking about what we tend to project what we hate within ourselves into other people, and then we go and hate those people.
It's so hard to keep it in.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what happens, So this is kind of like that, but understanding what judgment really is in Christian theological terms helps to kind of diffuse the mystery about this particular concept, because it's not about it's not that pastors and teachers have a greater risk of going to hell than everyone else. That's not what it means. It really just means that we're more responsible. There's more, because we have more wisdom. Look, I remember, let me give you a little anecdote here that might help to make it even more clear. When my wife, Tracy, was going through her catechesis to enter into baptism with the church, she was baptized at Ruthenia, so that's one of the Eastern Catholic churches. And of course, she received Eucharist and baptism, first Eucharist, and confirmation all on the same day. And then we were married in the church after that, because those things had to happen first, and then we were then received into the church, sacramentally. And I had to go for a confession before I could do that because, it had been a while for me as well. I had been away from the church for a while. So we went through the catechesis, and she had to have a sponsor, which somebody from the Ruthenian church graciously volunteered to be that sponsor. And so she sat with us through these courses, and she was very disturbed by the fact that a person could be a cradle Catholic and live the Catholic life and be brought up within the Catholic, which is what we should all strive for from a Catholic point of view, right? Raise your children Catholic, get them baptized when they're young, raise them in the church, all this stuff. But if they commit a mortal sin, well, then now their soul is in absolute peril until they reconcile this with the church, right? Which is, reconciliation and, of course, penance and all that stuff. Where she was also saying that, but if a person just wasn't exposed to the church and didn't know better, and then they commit mortal sin, well, then their culpability is so much lower. And so her argument to the priest was, it's almost better that you're raised without the church, so that when you make your mistakes, you're not as held as accountable as the person that was raised in it, where now it seems like it's so much more perilous. And of course, he had a really clever, funny way of explaining this to her. But suffice it to say, his approach to it was that just because it alleviates our personal responsibility doesn't mean that life without Jesus is somehow better, because you're missing all the benefits too. Was essentially what he was getting at, is that you might have less culpability, but you're missing out on 99% of all the benefits that come with actually being raised in the faith, which counteract that small risk.
And it points to another problem with this fixation about judgment and salvation. And again, of course, judgment and salvation are important, but if that's the limit of your focus, then you're missing the entire point. I mean, this does happen, by the way. Again, this is true. But churches that obsess on Jesus died for your sins on the cross, and whenever I hear that, I follow up with this question: so what's the empty tomb about then?
Yeah.
Like, no. Yes, it's important to acknowledge that we sin and that God has taken on our sins. And in fact, he's embraced that sin, taken it upon himself and killed it, right? But the whole point is he rose from the dead. And that's to say that, salvation, our sins have to be dealt with. But the purpose of dealing with sins is not an end in itself. The purpose of dealing with your sins is so that you can live fully, and living fully means serving God. And that's what we will do in the afterlife for all eternity, and so
which I want to make sure everyone understands is an inconceivable reality. It sounds as though it's like, oh my God, this is going to be so monotonous, so boring. I mean, there's no conflict. There's no.
You won't have sin with you, so you won't think it's boring.
Yeah.
That's right. And Tracy she corrected me again. I think I make this mistake every time I tell this story. It was not her sponsor. It was a fellow catechumen that was going through with her. And she was frustrated because she was feeling singled out for being a convert versus a cradle Catholic, and how they would be handled within the catechesis process. That's what it was. Thank you, Tracy, for reminding me yet again, probably for the 6th or 7th time for some reason.
That's a common problem, though.
Yes,
it is. Common problem.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And that's why
I get sick of being called a convert by people who know absolutely nothing about the creed that they've been saying since they were born.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. In my experience, converts take the faith so much more seriously than cradles. They really do. Not in all cases. Converted. Yeah. Because it meant something to them. Meant something enough to actually go and pursue it. Whereas when you're just born with it, you kind of take things you're born with for granted. It's like being born into a rich family, never really knowing how hard life could be if you didn't have so much privilege, and well, I mean, that might be a good thing from the point of view of, well, you're not going to suffer as much and you'll have more opportunity, but does it really prepare you for the world that's out there and being able to relate to the average person? Probably not. That's the real problem with a lot of these, billionaires, I mean, not the self-made ones, of course,
Just
but
completely out of touch.
yeah, they're out of touch with reality. They don't know what it's like to even relate to the average person. So that creates problems, But yeah, I mean, look, I would just simply say that regardless of which religion you practice, okay? And look, I mean, I've practiced most of them at some point, and I've spent most of my time as both a Christian and a Buddhist. So I like those two the most. But regardless of which one you choose, all of them come down to ultimately personal responsibility. Okay? Always comes down to personal responsibility. You can't just simply find scapegoats and excuses and, this is unfair and that's unfair. Look, everything's unfair. It's not balance. Look, the universe is about balance. It's not about fairness.
It's not maturity. Maturity is the knowledge that life is not fair.
Yeah.
Like, if you're still there going, no, life's not fair, it's like, grow up.
Yeah.
Sorry, unless the listener is a kid, you're allowed to. That's fine. Yeah. There comes a point in life where you have to say, do you know what? Life's not going to get any fairer.
No.
So how am I going to deal with it?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And so when it comes to taking your spiritual maturity into your own hands and making decisions to cultivate that spirituality, whatever it is that you choose to cultivate, if it fails, there's no one left to blame but yourself. Really, there's no one left to blame but yourself. Even look, I'm the first one to be sympathetic to trauma, but even religious trauma is not an excuse. Okay, it's not an excuse any more than it would be an excuse to be like you were, you were sexually abused, and so therefore you've made a resolve to never have a healthy sexual relationship now. That's not an excuse. Because you were sexually abused is not an excuse to go on for the rest of your life without a healthy sexual relationship. You need to take the part that you play in your own, progressive nature to be able to improve yourself as your own responsibility and move beyond these things. Easier said than done. I get it. But it doesn't mean you stop trying just because it's hard. And it certainly doesn't mean that you come up with scapegoats and excuses for why you can't. All right? It's
If
never
you're
an
abused
excuse.
by a chef, you wouldn't stop eating for the rest of your life.
Exactly. I mean, it's one way
Definitely
to look
not.
at it, right? It's one way to look at it. Or what about like your parents? Maybe they hated each other. So what, you're never going to get married because, marriages are bad? Just because your experience with it was bad?
Well, again, that's an immature response.
It is.
And by the way, I had that response when I was 10 and my parents split up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was okay when I was 10.
Yeah.
It's not okay if it's my response
You
now.
got to grow up, and that's where the personal responsibility comes in, which we'll probably get to tonight. So thank you for those questions, April, and thank you for all of you out there for sending them in, and don't ever stop because you never know when your question might become part of questions from the ether. Okay, so we are now at the top of the hour. We're going to take our first break here, and when we return, we will then begin exploring tonight's topic on meditation with brand new guest Mark Blacknell. Don't go away.
excelsis Deo, et in terra pax hominibus bone voluntatis. Laudamus Te, benedicimus Te, adoramus Te, glorificamus Te. Gratias agimus Tibi propter magnam gloriam Tua. Domine Deus, Rex Celestis, Deus Pater omnipotens, Domine Filii unigenite, Iesu Christe. Domine Deus, Agnus Dei, Filius Patris, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis, qui tollis peccata mundi, suscipe deprecationem nostram, qui sedes ad dexteram Patris, miserere nobis, quoniam tu solus sanctus, tu solus Dominus, tu solus altissimus, Iesu Christe, cum Sancto Spiritu, in gloria Dei Patris. Amen.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second hour of Vestiges After Dark. Let's jump in here now with our subject tonight on finding God in the silence. Meditation, centering prayer. We'll talk about all of this and get the opinions of our brand new guest tonight, Mark Blacknell. He's going to teach us a little thing or two about how to quiet our minds and what it all means, what the results can be. An important show tonight. Don't go away. Our guest tonight is Mark Blacknell, who's the author of Just Stare at the Damn Wall, Simplify Your Mind, and co-creator of the Lighten Up and Root Down Meditation Group. A former U.S. Marine and working class kid from Philadelphia, Mark's path has been shaped by resilience, service, and a long search for simplicity. After reaching a personal turning point, he discovered the stabilizing power of stillness and the clarity that can arise from simply sitting down and paying attention. Over more than 3 decades of meditation practice, he has developed a grounded, accessible approach marked by humor, honesty, and plain-spoken insight. Through donation-based talks and meditation sessions with seniors, inmates, treatment programs, and community groups, Mark shares a message rooted in direct experience. Peace is not found by escaping life, but by meeting it fully, one breath and one moment at a time. Please welcome our guest, Mark, to the show tonight. How you doing tonight, Mark?
Welcome, Mark.
Oh, great. Thank you. Everybody can hear me? We're good?
You
Yes,
sound
sir.
fantastic. You look great, too. So you
Oh,
are...
thank you. Yeah, that was quite the introduction there. Thank you. But I think the first thing we should do to break the ice is 4 Catholics and a Buddhist walk into a bar. What happens next?
They probably end up something like me, I think. That's what would happen.
Be a great conversation.
You know, the thing is about Buddhism is that I mean, Mark, you'll understand this, I think. I left the church. I grew up Catholic, okay, and never really practiced it very much. Found a vocation in my teens, went to some monasteries, floated around some of the strictest Catholic monasteries there were, tried to find my way, left the church, came back to it, left the church again, came back and became a bishop. The reality of it is that in those times between, I was a Buddhist, and the longest stretch was 10 years. And I tell people this all the time, and unless they've done it, they will never understand it, but I think you'll get it. My Catholicism didn't mean anything until I had Buddhism to back it up. It filled in all the missing parts. The metaphysics of Buddhism, I guess you could say, the praxis of Buddhism, the experiential nature of Buddhism, all filled in all the missing pieces, so that now I kind of feel more like a complete person, being able to draw from both traditions. And I've never really lost my Buddhism. Being a Catholic doesn't change that. And I think that's the beauty of Buddhism, is that it's more of a way of life anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really require you to believe in anything. It's really just more about what you experience. So I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, I think my story is similar. I actually converted to Judaism
Oh,
and studied with, Chabad
Sounds
rabbis.
painful.
Yeah,
sounds painful.
well, it was pretty. I got a funny story. I was helping this Chabad rabbi quite a bit over the years, donations, helping him with his life, counseling him. But he would tell people I wasn't Jewish. So I got to a point where I said, hey, Rebbe, you either count me in, I'm Jewish, or I'm going to find somebody else to donate my money to.
Yeah.
And he said, you're Jewish now. Chutzpah. Yeah, I thought you were listening.
It
to
worked.
That, buddy.
Yeah.
That was great.
Money talks.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't really even call myself a Buddhist anymore, to be quite honest. I pretty much say that I'm a practitioner of nothing, but we'll get into all that. So I've gone even further than identifying with a certain, I was in Zen.
Yeah.
And I think you probably know a little bit about Zen. It carries a lot of Japanese imperialism with it, I would say, and a lot of structure and doctrine and formalities. And I live in the South of the United States with you folks. I live in Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One state
So
over.
I started working in my community, and I just stopped using Buddhist terms altogether and had to figure out other ways of communicating with my community in order to, play a part in it and help folks kind of slow down and maybe find a little peace of mind. So I just stopped using the terms altogether but it wasn't a conscious thing. It just kind of evolved because of where I am. I'm not in Northern California where my Sangha was, where there's a Buddhist on every corner.
Yeah.
I'm in Florida, it's about 10,000 to 1 churches to, there is no meditation centers here. There's me. So I had to adapt, and I had some unfortunate things happen to me in my Sangha, which is, a Buddhist community. And really, all of these experiences have just forced me to kind of be independent at this point. I don't mean independent in the sense that I isolate. I do stare at the wall quite a bit, obviously. But
as evidenced by the name of the book, right?
Yes.
I mean, but I feel part of my community. I feel part of the world and the universe itself. So it's not sort of separating myself, but I just feel as though labels, you were talking about names of God earlier, and that brought this up in me. The label Zen it can be restrictive in a sense. And we have to be careful with these labels. But another thing you brought up, which would be a great way to start this conversation, is I think you called it the cosmic mirror. That I think, now if I'm wrong, correct me, but I think you said at the end of our lives, we're going to be looking into this cosmic mirror and judging ourselves, right?
Right. That was a good way of putting what I said. Yeah.
Well, I would say meditation is putting yourself in front of that cosmic mirror every day. It's stopping your life before it's over and it's too late. You don't want to wait until the end to do that. It might be a good idea to start practicing that now. And the thing I like to help folks with is, initially when you look into that cosmic mirror, you're going to be judging. You're going to be like, oh God, like I shouldn't have done that. Or wow, this is me, really, Yeah. So you will judge, but eventually if you do it, if you practice it, it's just like in Australia, you call it football. By the way, I went to uni in Penrith.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's a whole different story.
I live in the inner west, so these days there's a road that goes directly to Penrith from where I live. So there you go.
I thought I was going to have fun and surf, but uni
Not in Penrith.
Penrith. Yeah, I had no clue. But the University of Sydney was difficult. Anyway, that's a different story.
It's got worse.
I was like, wait a minute, these Australians are supposed to be laid back. Why is school so hard here? Anyway, so at first you do judge when you sit in front of that cosmic mirror. The wall is the mirror because there's no sensory stimulation, and therefore you start to see what's kind of going on inside yourself. And you do judge at first, but once you get through that, after 5 years, no, I'm joking, it depends on the individual. Then you start to see how it works without judgment. Once you kind of move past the judgment, and it's very easily, judge not lest ye be judged. I like that one. If you stop judging yourself, you stop judging other people typically.
That's a very astute thing. I mean, a lot of people don't really realize that that's exactly what Jesus is saying there, is that because of that cosmic mirror, the judgment that you inflict upon others, it becomes the judgment you end up directing towards yourself. And that's exactly what Judgment Day really is in the Christian context. They always think that's like this, Jesus is going to stand there with every bad thing you've ever done, and he's going to lay down the law on you and send you to hell. It's just that's not good Christian theology, and it's not good reality at all.
Ultimately, isn't it just a waste of time as well? Like, I can sit in my room and judge anybody I even half know. I could sit in my room this evening and judge Mark, right? I know
Hey.
precisely 3 things about Mark, right?
Let's talk to him for a while
Yeah,
first.
no picking on the guest, Father. I mean,
He can take it. He lived in
Hey,
Penrith.
fire and brimstone, Father.
He's had worse in Penrith.
and he was a Marine. I mean, that's hard enough as it is, right?
Hoorah.
No, but what I was going to say was that doesn't affect Mark in the slightest, or any of the millions of people I'm sat in my room judging. It's a complete waste of my own time. And so the whole point of don't judge other people is because you can't control that, and it's a complete distraction from what you're supposed to be doing, which is being better yourself.
Yeah.
So I see where Mark's spiritual exercises and practices help.
I'm going to have my people edit out when you were like, that's exactly what Jesus meant. Spread that around this
I
community.
think it is, actually.
I'm telling you, Jesus was a lot more Buddhist than most of the Buddhists in Florida, I'll tell you that. I grew up in Florida. So when I said I was a Buddhist for 10 years, it was in Florida where that happened. So I understand the climate there. I mean, fortunately, we did have, I mean, I was studying more in the Vajrayana school, so it was more the Tibetan variety, and we had some Kempos with a Dharma center down near where I was. So that was nice. But in similar ways to what you described, the Sangha was complicated in Florida, and I preferred to kind of do my own thing.
Yeah, I think that's best for me. I was quite controversial.
Yeah.
But really, I strip Zen down to its barest level. So there is a tradition. There was a guy by the name of Bodhidharma. You may remember Bodhidharma from your Buddhist time. And he's the guy that stared at the wall for 7 straight years, and some guy wanted him to teach him, but he kept ignoring the guy, and the guy sat out in the cold by the gate and sat in the rain and just never left. And Bodhidharma was like, I wish this guy would just leave me alone. So then the guy chopped his arm off and gave it to Bodhidharma and said, hey, I'm serious. Will you teach me now? And he said, okay.
Since you're willing to go to that length.
Extreme.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really say no.
Right.
But that's kind of how I operate. But students, you bring instability into your life, when you bring a student in. And if you don't have an organization or around you, you got to understand how to protect yourself and have boundaries. Mm-hmm. So it's more important out here. So it's kind of like the whole world is a monastery,
Yeah.
For me. I have to create pockets of silence here in this world. They're not created for me. So in a lot of ways, I hear people say, I could never be a monk. It's too regimented. I always think, man, they got it easy. Everything's set for them. I got kids, I got bills, I got traffic, I got,
distractions.
And
I think that's what it is for people, is that the average person, that has a sincere intent to, progress in some spiritual way, perhaps wants to even engage a direct experience of some kind, and wants to feel that progress. Again, that's a desire. So I always try to caution that being the motivation. We shouldn't be motivated to do this out of desire as much as out of the pure function of being able to achieve what I think is perhaps closer to our highest reality, or what we could at least achieve. So
we call that original nature.
Yes.
Or true nature.
Yes. So for people seeking their true nature, in the distractions of the modern world, and all of that is quite profound today with internet and AI and media and social media.
Much.
It's just so much negativity and toxicity. What's the starting point for you when you have a student that comes to you right out of all of this madness that we call the earth? How do you start them on the path towards this realization?
Well, in order for meditation to actually be effective, a person has to be relatively stable. Relatively, There's a wide spectrum.
Yeah.
So they have to be relatively stable. So sometimes the first thing I'll do is give them a brochure of free mental health clinics and suggest that they go there.
Well, see, that's
Yeah.
not too far from what
I mean,
we do,
yeah,
right?
that's,
Yeah.
we come across that quite a bit.
Yeah, we do.
So, and sometimes I'll say, when's the last time you had a physical? How old are you? Have you, if they're old enough, I'll say, have you had your have you had a prostate exam? And they look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm not joking. If you haven't been to the doctor or the dentist in years because you've been on some spiritual quest, for me, that would be the first thing you need to do before I'll work with you,
Yeah.
Just the basic practical things in life. But barring that, sometimes it is younger people. I have worked with younger people as well. If I'm comfortable enough and they respect my boundaries, I just teach them how to do it without saying much. I just go, you got a little sharky here and a little sharky here, and the little sharkies swim to one another. And, I just walk them through the process.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, now you're on your own. Do that 5 minutes every day for 2 weeks straight without missing a day. If you miss a day, you got to start back at day one.
Mm-hmm.
We use the Harvard Honor Code. There'd be no point in you lying and saying you did it if you didn't do it. In fact, I'd probably know if you didn't do it.
Mm.
But if you can do it 2 weeks straight for 5 minutes, I'm here. Come back and see me. Now, I'd probably given at least 1,000 or more people that opportunity. Only one person ever did it for, in 2 weeks.
2
like
weeks.
after I showed them, they had 13 more days. They did it, and then they got back to me. They've stopped meditating, by the way, unfortunately. But
5 minutes of silence feels like 5 days, right?
if you're not used to it
In this world.
in this world, right?
Yeah.
Just stopping, staring at a wall. I teach people, in the East, people sit on the ground like I'm sitting on the ground right now. You can't see it. And I've been sitting on the ground through your whole discussion.
I'm not flexible enough.
Yeah, my knees would be done.
Yeah, I'm just so used to it. I actually feel more comfortable like this than I do in a chair.
I imagine,
But
yeah.
most people, especially if they have any physical limitations, I do not suggest they do this. And I start them in a chair. And the reason I realized it was okay to meditate in a chair is because I work with seniors. So one day, there's a Japanese woman at work. She's a real Japanese woman. And she asked me if I could teach her to meditate. And I said, sure. And we sat down. I put my mat down and I was on the ground. She was in a chair. She's 85 years old. And she started laughing. She said, this is so absurd. An American man teaching me, a good Japanese woman, how to do Zen. And then she said, and you're on the ground like I'm supposed to be. I'm in a chair. And I said, oh, no. I'm just giving the gift your ancestors gave me back to you.
There you go.
And I did not instruct you properly. Your ancestors taught that it's perfectly fine to sit in a chair. And I put my mat away and sat next to her in the chair. And that was the moment I realized, okay, it doesn't need to be on the ground, especially with someone with limitations. There is some value. Like when we get done our discussion, my legs are going to be hurting really bad, but then I'll get up and walk away. So there is some value in that. In me realizing that my legs may be more important than I give them credit for usually. I learned that one.
There's a lot of, I mean, if you're an ex-Marine, you know that there's a lot of lesson in dealing with discomfort, though. Like being comfortable all the time is a real problem, and that really is the path to perdition. It's the path that Western culture seems to be on, let's just sit in the bath and get drunk and die, it's Comfort will do you more damage than discomfort.
You were talking about balance earlier, and that's a term I use quite a bit.
Yeah.
But you don't want to inflict pain on yourself that's going to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That makes no sense.
No, I said discomfort.
Yeah, but a little discomfort is quite good, because you're going to experience discomfort in life quite a bit, and the more you
get growing pains for a reason.
Yeah, the more you accept it, the better off you are. But balance, the whole universe isn't balanced. It's violent, it's dark, it's chaotic. But we live in a little pocket of balance here, man. I mean, this is a miracle. If the sun wasn't the exact size, age, and distance, and our planet wasn't the exact size, age, and distance, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. So the universe is, that's wild, man. But this little pocket here, and we're each little pockets within a pocket, a bigger pocket, we're these little pockets of equilibrium here. So it's really a miracle that we're all talking. And especially across the sea like this, think about that. Mm-hmm. You got 4 Catholics and a Buddhist talking into a machine, and we're all in different places, but somehow we're communicating. I mean, even that's a miracle. So I think the thing that really you start to feel when you're sitting there doing nothing and you're faced to kind of look at what's actually in front of you, you start to feel like this is a miracle. Yeah. Not only that, the thing that allowed me to see that my life was a miracle was not some big enlightenment moment. It was, I started to notice that every morning when I sat down, everything was spinning. And there were all these weird feelings. Could have been from a dream, could have been from the day before, what the day might bring, whatever, wherever it came from. It's all this stuff spinning around. And then by just meditating, somehow that spin all settles, and then you can see the wall like right in front of you. And you're like, wow, I can see that wall without all this stuff flying around, the whole universe flying around there. So then this voice that I call the coach, you would probably call it God. I call it the coach. The coach says, this is a miracle. Every morning, no matter what. Then I get this kind of warm feeling in my belly, and it goes up to my brain, kind of like the sun rising, And I think that's like Mother Nature, and she's like, it's going to be okay, little boy. You're good. You're going to be good. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's the weird stuff that happens in meditation. It's kind of hard to talk about. Talking about the coach. This is a miracle, warmth, balance, spinning universes. It doesn't make much sense. But if you do it, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. You'll start to teach yourself.
I can testify to that. I mean, I can, because, I started with prayer, of course. And then I became very interested in this centering prayer. You might be familiar with it. But it's sort of a Catholic slant on Eastern meditative practices. And it became really popular in the 90s. It was really taking hold in a lot of parishes and teaching people, basically Catholics, how to pray without rattling their mouths off and speaking a bunch of words, but rather sitting and listening, which is very important for, I think, everybody to do, not just Catholics. But that gave me a really good foundation to what would later become Buddhist practice for me and meditation. Back in my college years, I spent a considerable amount of time in meditation and became quite proficient in it. And not because my instructors or anything were giving me any kinds of empowerments or little tips or anything, but rather that as you once you get over the initial hurdles of distraction, you kind of just naturally know how to teach yourself, and then that progress sort of just happens organically. And that's when really, I like the way you classify that as almost miraculous, because it does. At first, there are sensations, they're pleasant, but I would find that after a certain point in meditation, you reach a point beyond words, beyond feelings, beyond thoughts. And then even though you know you're having this direct experience, when you come back out of it, there's just no way to convey what occurred. There's no way to really express that, even to yourself. And other than the profound changes that happen within you. And that's what I try to encourage people that maybe are at the beginning and they're struggling. It's like, look, you're going to struggle. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to be distracted. But you just keep moving through it. You don't become distracted by the distractions, or you don't become distracted by becoming distracted, because even the distraction itself can become this feedback loop where you never get out of it. It's really just about, in the beginning, I think it's training like any kind of muscle or exercise. There's this wonderful thing, and I was taught this by a Buddhist more than, close to 3 decades ago. But it's something that I recently came across again on a YouTube channel that dealt with meditation. I thought, oh, well, they're still teaching this method. This is good. And the method goes like this. It's about, in Tibetan Buddhism, you're trying to understand the nature of the bardo. And by bardo, it's not just about this like immediate after death or in between death state. It's also about the bardo between moments, because there's countless bardos. We're always between bardos. Every breath you take before the next one is a bardo. And so what, if you can understand how to access these numerous bardos, then you finally learn to train your brain how to look for that silence, that moment, those moments without thinking, those moments where there isn't thought or distraction. And the way that I was trained, and I saw this guy on YouTube doing it, it's like, oh, this is great that they're still doing it this way, is that he would slowly talk to you, so he'd just be having a conversation. I am going to train you to begin your meditation by learning how to silence your mind. And he would slowly go through this, and each time, each sentence became slower and slower between words. And the point was, the moment, what he was going to say next, but those periods of stillness between each word was training, a type of meditation training people how to recognize what the bardo, these moments without thought, without feeling, without attachment, felt like. So that once you start this meditation, you would know when to recognize it, and then it becomes easier and easier to stay there, making meditation eventually far more effortless and far more natural, because your body really does know how to do it. It's just your brain has been, just been so damaged,
bombarded,
I guess you could say.
With stimulus.
With stimuli, yeah. And it's all it is. It's not really a bad thing. It's just you have to retrain yourself. You have to kind of unlearn the conventions of modernity in order to do this. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Mark, but that was very helpful for me, learning how to do that and learning how to recognize that, because now, even after years and years, I don't meditate as long as I used to, and there are days where I don't. But if I do, those days when I do, I can just jump right back into it from where I left off, as if there was no time between them, because I can recognize that stillness, and I never forgot how to do it.
Mark, can I just add to the question, because I've got the same question?
Yeah.
Long question. Sorry about that. We ask very long questions on this show.
I'll tell you what I would tell a student who said that to me. We'll wait for that.
I'll be very succinct. I'm the world's worst at this. Like, my brain goes at 1,000 miles an hour, right? And so even when I'm reading, like I read ahead of the text, like I'm, it's kind of a good thing in terms of academic ability, but it's a bad thing in terms of, whoa, slow down. And so but I find obviously, the Catholic religion, and obviously I celebrate mass and what have you. That is the and I'm not saying people got to do that. I'm just saying that. Do you think it's helpful to have a sort of religious discipline, because it does help, like, to sort of say, this is what it is most of the time, but this is a space where I've learned habitually to slow that down and be in the moment. Because I find, if I'm at benediction or if I'm at the mass, my mind doesn't do that anymore. Like, I'm able, but it's pretty much the only time it doesn't do that. I don't know. Do you advise sort of those habits that help you to sort of have a space where that's more possible?
Yeah. Like I say, meditation isn't mystical revelation. It's like exercise.
Yeah.
If you want your body to be in good shape, you got to exercise. You got to eat right. If you want your mind to be in good shape, you might want to try meditation.
Yeah.
But it's a lot like a kid. Like when I first started meditating, I was like, you heard of Maradona, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The hand of God.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The soccer player.
Well, we don't call it that in England because it was against us.
Yeah, that was against you. It was a foul. No,
Yeah.
but anyway.
And the Falklands are ours. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah.
Got him started.
Uh-oh. No. So there's a lot of Argentinians in Florida. I'm not going to take your side there. They said when he was a kid, he would be in the grocery store with his mother and he'd grab an apple and he'd start juggling it, not with his hands, with his feet. Everything was a soccer ball to him. Anything even remotely like a soccer ball was a soccer ball. So when I first started meditating, it was like I was a kid with a soccer ball, kicking the ball against the wall over and over and over again, seeing where that, it bounces this way, it bounces that way, this comes up, that comes up, the ball's bouncing all over, that's the mind. But sooner or later, through repetition, you do it long enough, you start to be able to, even Maradona could not score every time or do exactly what he wanted with the ball. I mean, he was pretty good, but not perfect. So you're never going to reach that perfection, but you can start handling the ball a little bit better at the wall. And then when you're out in the game, in the heat of the battle, your body knows what to do. You don't have to overthink it. I mean, do you ever see a guy that lines up for a penalty kick in football? What does he do? Messi. Mm-hmm. Deep breath. Deep breath. He's practiced that over and over and over again. So when the big kick comes, he's not like, oh man, I got to score. There's all these people, the camera. Oh God, So that's really what meditation is. It's repetition, repetition, repetition. And I simplify everything. I don't give much instruction, because when you give instruction, even if it's a guy talking slower, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But it does implant something in you.
A predisposition.
Like maybe I need to really look for this space. And if I can't find this space where I'm not thinking, and
it switches on the processor too. Like you gotta deal with that information.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost gets in the way.
You get worried about doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You start gauging yourself and you start saying, well, I can't see this. So I just say, wherever the ball bounces, just pay attention to it. Whatever comes up, just watch it like you're binge watching a Netflix series. Just watch yourself. Just observe. You're going to judge at first, especially. Those bad feelings are going to come up from childhood. I mean, you're going to see how wild this mind is when you just stop and take a look at it for a while. You're going to start seeing that this mind is a lot bigger than just little you.
Yeah.
And the only thing we can direct, we can't direct it perfectly, like Maradona couldn't score every single time. The only thing we direct is our focus or our awareness that cuts through the whole spinning universe, and that's where our choices come up. You're talking about choices earlier. The only place our choices, our creativity, our lives, our purpose come up is in our awareness and our focus. Now, the way to express meditation, in my opinion, is you go to the wall years and years and years and years every day. You face all your pain. You face the devil. You face it all, man. Believe me, sometimes it's a living hell sitting there. Sometimes it's easy. I find that when my life is a little off balance, my meditation's great. But when my life's going perfect, it's harder to meditate.
Yeah.
Anybody can have faith when everything's going great, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But the rubber meets the road when stuff starts going bad. Then you see whether your faith's real or not. When
you have faith or not.
Yeah. When you're not getting rewarded. And it took me a long time to get over that. Okay, I'm not going to be rewarded by the Zen God. I can't expect good fortune all the time. I can't, I can't expect eternal life because I chose not to go that route, right? I have to face myself right now, and I just have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it without really thinking about where it could lead me. I never would have ever expected that this would lead me to death row and to senior citizens and the kind of stuff I'm doing. So I always say, just plant yourself like a seed. Jesus talked about the lilies of the field. It's one of my favorite things he said. They don't toil. The lilies of the field. A seed, if you plant a seed and you don't get in its way and you don't screw it up, it knows what to do. Sure. And someday it'll grow into this huge, like an olive tree, the universal symbol of peace, olive, takes 60 years to yield a crop. So you got to be patient. You got to let your seed grow. God, or whatever you choose to call the coach, nature, the universe, it will provide for you. And your seed will grow as long as you stay out of the way. And you stay out of the way, your mind's what gets in the way. Overthinking, overanalyzing everything. Now, a lot of times in Buddhist and New Age communities, they're like, the ego is bad and thinking is bad. And oh, that's dangerous stuff, man. You don't want to start thinking, your critical thinking is not good and you need to follow what the guru says. That's nothing but trouble. But everything has its place. Thinking has its place. Not thinking has its place. But until you kind of just throw it all on the wall or that cosmic mirror and kind of watch it swirl around for a while, you can't really get used to it. You'll be swirling until the day you die. Then you'll be in front of the cosmic mirror and you'll be like, oh God, what do I do now? It's better to just go in front of the mirror now. So we say in Buddhism a lot, in Zen, that, you die over and over and over. You don't literally die, obviously, but you kind of do, because, you're more receptive and open to change. So you're constantly, like, I wrote this book, right? It's 300 something. I look at that book and I'm like, I have no clue how I wrote that book. I'm in awe.
But you did.
I don't know how I did it. Is that me? Like, that's me? Wow. And it's only because I allowed silence to kind of, and nature or God or whatever you call it, speak through me. Now, my thing is balance, right? So you say something like God speaking through you in a book. Oh, you better balance that out real quick. Because you can start to think you're the messenger, you're the main messenger. So I always say, I meditate, I help people for myself. It's a fulfilling life. So it's me first, right? It's more realistic. Even if you want to go to heaven, it's for you. It's not, you don't want to go to heaven for God. You want to go to heaven for yourself, right? Then I help people to give my children a good example, a stable example, like, hey, this is cool to help people, right? Mm-hmm. And then third, I do it for my community. If there's anything left over, God gets it. What do you think about that?
Well, God doesn't need anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the entire point of Christianity is God didn't need to redeem us. We needed God to redeem us. But God didn't need it. Like, we can't give God anything.
Nor can we take away from God too. I mean, that's the other thing that I think people forget. Yes. They think that, sinning makes him sad. Makes him angry,
or less holy,
Yeah, it's like we can't subtract from God. We can't add to God. I mean, it's really we participate. That's what relationship is. And Christianity, at least good theology, would teach that we participate in God's reality, but it's not the kind of thing
we create with him. Actually, it's kind of amazing, the invitation we're given,
which is not too far from how Buddhists look at it. They just don't categorize it the same way. But I mean, it really is the same general dynamic, though, because look, Western religion spends a lot of time trying to make God understandable, and so therefore you get personifications. You get all sorts of categories and rules and, thou shalt nots and everything else that comes with it. In the East, they never really fell into that same kind of rigidity. I mean, it is there in different ways, but not in the same way that we have it in the West. And they're much more comfortable with the mystery, even in Christianity, even in Eastern Christianity. The further east you go, the more comfortable people get with the mystery of it. And the more west you go, the more they want to pin it down and make sense of it in some kind of rational, logical way. I think the first step is to get rid of any preconceived notions of rationality. And I think really what you're saying, Mark, if I'm hearing you correctly, which is like perfectly Buddhist in a way, well, in every way, really, is that the problem is not any one particular thing. The problem is excess. And that's falling off that middle path, I think, that Buddha talked about, and why the middle path is such a central feature of his teaching, because it's not as though this is good and that's bad. Stay away from this, but, gravitate towards that. It's always understanding that any excess of any kind is going to become a distraction, which is an attachment, lead to suffering, fall into a vicious cycle.
Well, the Buddha died in an excess of meditation.
Well, I mean, there's difference. Some say he ate bad pork. I mean, that's hard to say.
I don't know much about that guy.
If you see the Buddha walking down the road, kill him. Right? That's the Buddha that he follows.
Yeah, I don't know much about that dude, but I mean, everything you're saying is consistent. I think that's the beautiful thing when we can kind of open our minds up. Like I can see what you're saying, even though it's, a different religion or belief system, I can see the commonality in what you're saying to what, I think. And I can see the commonalities. I see the commonalities more in everything. Like even in an inanimate object now. I've gotten to that point. I'll tell you how I learned that. There's this 80-some-year-old woman, dementia patient, right? And I have to get her up in a wheelchair. I have to put her in this big bus, and then I have to strap her down so she doesn't roll over. There's these big black metal hooks. Generally, this woman mumbles things, that don't make much sense. But one day I was kind of in a hurry. It was hot. I had to get other people, and I was struggling with the hooks. And she, out of nowhere, had a perfect moment of clarity, and she said, Mark. She knew my name. I was like, whoa, This is wild. She said, Mark, if you show those hooks a little love and affection, if you pay attention to them, they'll work with you. And damn it, if I didn't look down at those hooks and they did what she said, they were alive. They were they're the same stuff as me, because, God is absolutely everything. By the way, we can't forget that. It's inconceivable.
But we also believe God is something and someone, because if you're everything, you're also nothing, right? And I don't believe that about God. But that could be some.
Yeah,
that could
I
be a
don't
point
know.
of difference.
I try to. I don't inject my personal opinions. I don't want to be responsible for telling someone else,
Sure.
that God is this, because God is God.
Oh, I don't trust my personal opinion. I do trust the revelation of the church. I mean, that is because to a certain extent, the interior voice is always you, right? I mean, like Jung would say that, or even St. John of the Cross might have said, sometimes God might speak to you, but you should actually dread that. Because that can really screw your life
then you're
up.
responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no good. But let me ask you guys something, since I'm on the line with a bunch of Christians. I mean, this is great. I don't get this opportunity much, and when I do, it could be heated. So you have to be very careful what you say, when you're talking about some really fundamentalist Christians.
Not with us.
Not here.
Yeah, not us.
No, you won't offend anyone here.
That's what I'm saying. Let's get a little.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's dive in. Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay.
So, like, when a person, this happens to me 3 times a week here. Do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior?
Oh boy.
Okay, so I over the years, I've developed a response. I said, well, if it's the Jesus that says, he who hath no sin upon his hand, throw the first stone. Yes, I do believe in that. If it's the Jesus that talks about the lilies of the field, not toiling, absolutely believe in that. If it's the Jesus, I could go on and on.
But a good teacher isn't a savior. I mean, that is the point of difference with Christianity. By the way, my response to evangelical Christians that say that to me, because if you're a Catholic, you can't possibly be saved, of course. I just say you've missed a word out. Lord and God and Savior. Do you believe Jesus Christ is God? And actually, a lot of Protestant Christians have not imbibe that key bit of doctrine that the church teaches. And so I kind of pick them up on, what you're believing in is actually not a full picture of what has been revealed,
What it always comes back to is one of 2 things. Either
are you in my club?
Well, what you're saying is the life you're living biblical. And then, of course, I say, well, which Bible are we talking about?
Yeah.
Which version? Oh, your version. Boy, you got a lot of responsibility if it's just your version. But then the other thing is, there's a belief out there, and I don't know how you folks feel about this, that if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, the name Jesus, you have to believe in him. It doesn't really matter what you do. You just have to believe, then you go to heaven. But if you don't believe in him, you're going to burn in eternal hell.
What
do you think about that?
Religion.
I mean, we have to.
Father
we
Chris,
we have to admit that what you believe in typically depends on where you were born, who your parents were. Well, there's missionaries all over the world. Everybody has an equal. No, come on.
Father Chris and I would have probably, in some ways, similar responses to that, and in somewhat different responses as well. It is actually a subject that comes up on this show quite often.
Yeah.
So it's a good one for you to ask. And I think the best answer I can give there is that I don't believe in any accountability outside of myself. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't feel that it's not as though my imperfections would warrant me to be sent to hell by the deity that I have worshipped and served all my life. That is not in my theology. I don't have any framework for that, never will. What I see is that my imperfections prevent me from realizing the fullness of whatever that reality is that we want to call God or Jesus or the Trinity or whatever names or categories as Catholics we give it. That reality, which I believe is the same for all religions, ultimately, I do. is whether we realize it or not. And there's only one person
It's the same
responsible
human
for
desire.
that. It is.
Wherever we're from, it's the same human desire.
Exactly.
But you're right, and it's better to look at the sort of if you ask specifically from a Christian perspective, how is it we kind of contend with that? Well, I think, like you've said, well, you mentioned the woman caught in adultery, right? He without sin cast the first stone. What does Jesus say to the woman afterwards? Neither do I condemn you, is what he says. So the whole point is God is not there seeking the ruin of souls. Okay. In fact, the scriptures say that's what the devil's doing, not God. In fact, when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, God came looking for them. Where are you, Adam? Where are you, my son? So no, I don't. It's a very wrong conception of Christian doctrine, but also just which reflects truth, to suggest that God is trying to put us in hell and judge us and condemn us. But we put ourselves there by refusing to forgive ourselves. And so, Fulton Sheen famously said, hell is eternal self-unforgiveness for having rejected divine love. Now, there's a lot in that statement, but the essence of it is to say, no, we put ourselves in hell because we refuse love. We refuse to, and the sins that evangelical Christians are so happy to talk about. I had an image when you were speaking, Bishop Brian, which is, it's not like those sins are the things that I'm on the edge of the precipice. If I sin one more time, I'm going into hell. That's a really bad way of looking at it. It's more like saying, if heaven is a bath, the sin is, you get in the bath and you still got your socks on. Right? You're not enjoying the fullness of the
It'll still be wet.
experience.
Yeah. Let's take our next break here. We'll come back.
Can Mark stick around?
Yeah, Mark, stick
that'd be
around.
good.
We'll come back
You're
and we'll
giving
take.
me hope. You're giving me hope, guys.
We can fix this. I promise. We'll be back after this.
We'll
Don't go
destroy
away.
that hope.
stretched long, the sky stretched wide. I carried the world but left my pride. I'm coming back home where the rivers run slow, where the heart beats steady, where the wildflowers grow. I've been a shadow chasing the sun, but I'm coming back home, where I'm someone. The mailbox leans like it's tired of the way the paint on the mark wears its own kind of fate. I see my reflection in the broken glass, a stranger and a child from the past. The miles between were a lonely tune, but every step brought me closer to June. I'm coming back home where the rivers run slow, where the heart beats steady, where the wildflowers grow. I've been a shadow chasing the sun, but I'm coming back home, where I'm someone.
Welcome back, everyone, to the third and final hour of Vestiges After Dark. What an engaging discussion tonight. And, you know, that's what's great about this show is that you just never really know how you're going to learn the things that you learn. It's never the way you would expect it to. It's very non-linear, which is very appropriate for a show like this one, particularly about a subject that we're discussing tonight. Our guest is Mark Blacknell. I keep wanting to say Blackwell because I know a guy named Mark Blackwell. Mark Blacknell. My apologies. Mark Blacknell is our guest.
It's the most famous bookshop in the whole world.
Oh, that's true. Yes, that's true. And we're going to be continuing the discussion and taking your questions. If you've got a question that you would like to ask on tonight's show, you can call into the show at 207-544-1983. That's 207-544-1983. And we'll take you on the air. You can also ask your questions in the various platforms around the internet: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We're on them all tonight, simulcasting, and you can put your questions in there. Our moderators will get them to us. But yeah, more to come. Don't go away. One of the ways, and I think Father Chris might struggle with my response here, Mark, but one of the ways in which I, as a Christian, reconciled a lot of this hellscape that you find within Christianity with this duality of the afterlife kind of thing, where Buddhism really doesn't have that same kind of thing, was to understand really fundamentally what is being addressed at that higher metaphysical level. So when I said at the earlier in the show that my Christianity, my Catholicism really didn't make sense until I practiced as a Buddhist for many years and then could come back to it, and then it made sense. This is kind of one of the ways in which that happens. So in Buddhism, and bear in mind, you know, Mark, for our audience, Mark is largely a Zen Buddhist, for lack of a better category. I hate to categorize anyone, but I mean, Zen is somewhat different than Vajrayana. Tibetan Buddhism is far more liturgical, somewhat more theological. In fact, I would say a lot more theological. So if you had to compare, you know, Buddhism to Christianity, you would have to say that the Tibetans are the closest thing to the Catholic version of Buddhism, because they are very lots of iconography. You know, they got a lot of ceremony involved in it, and there's theology and almost doctrine that comes with it. So that's more the Buddhism that I'm familiar with. Although I did, you know, I've studied Zen. But as far as like practice, that's the one I practice. So one of the things in Tibetan Buddhism, I mean, it's pretty much the same in all Buddhism, is to understand that unlike Christianity, where you have, in at least Western Christianity, I want to qualify that because that means something, and Father Chris will correct me if I don't later on. In Western Christianity, you have a duality. You know, you go to heaven, you go to hell, right? In Buddhism, you have basically nirvana and samsara. These aren't places you go. These are sort of realities that are the same reality. And so the difference, what decides whether or not you're in samsara or nirvana is basically whether you've realized it. If you realize it, then you're in nirvana. If you haven't realized it, you're in samsara. You stay in the cycle. I took that understanding and applied it to heaven and hell, and it remarkably works in the sense that what is hell? Well, we've talked about a lot of different ways of explaining it, and some people prefer the more traditional, and I don't know why, but they prefer the more traditional lens of...
It's not that traditional, it's Dante, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dante, but I mean, you know, it's like the idea of a location you go to be punished and suffer for all eternity, and you will live as a immortal being in this punishment, that kind of concept. Whereas, you know, we talked about annihilationism, which is one way in which Christian theology can reconcile some of that as a problem. Buddhism has almost a type of annihilationism in a way, but it's not a punishment. It's not something you receive because you were bad. It's basically just the ego never really existed to begin with. And so therefore the idea of self, or the anatta, as the doctrine would state in Buddhism, this idea of no soul, and by soul meaning no real intrinsic self, it's just an appearance, it kind of just gets washed away. So what actually does carry on? Well, nothing carries on. It's just realizing, waking up to a higher truth, or staying stuck within the delusions of attachment. And I really think that we can, as Christians, apply that exact same framework to heaven and hell. Instead of looking at it as this is some place you go when you die, you can look at it and say that, what is the resurrection of the dead? What is the beatific vision? What is becoming one with God? What does that really amount to metaphysically, outside of all the colorful language and all the theology and all the stories and mythos that's built around it? What's the core reality to it? And essentially, it is the same thing. You wake up or you stay asleep. Essentially, that's it. And if you really look at it as what gets annihilated in hell? Well, ego, I guess. I mean, what actually goes to hell in the Christian sense? The self. But if the self isn't really a real thing anyway, then isn't that kind of where it belongs? It just dissipates, you know? So I think that when somebody comes up to me and says, and I get it too, it's not just you as a Buddhist, Mark, that would have to deal with this. I mean, as a Catholic, we deal with it all the time. These evangelical Christians that come up with, loudmouth people that come up and, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord? And say, well, you're going to go to hell if you don't. I have to kind of laugh a little bit and say, you don't even know what you're talking about, even assuming that those words they don't and even assuming that's the way it worked, you still don't know what you're talking about, because you don't know what these words really mean, how they're applied, what's being conveyed. In my opinion, it's the same thing. And Father Chris, you might disagree with that, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm willing to be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not saying this authoritatively.
I don't think it's helpful to think about right or wrong in this. I mean, this is about how to conceive of something which is inconceivable. I mean, I said at the top of the show, the idea of heaven, heaven's the place of harps and clouds, and hell's the place where, the devil puts a pitchfork up your backside. This is
your ass, Father. Really, he sticks it up your ass. I mean, let's be plain.
It's your show. It's your show to use words. I'd use worse words. I just don't want you to bear the cost. I
appreciate that.
But they are kindergarten images, and unfortunately, they end up being the images that, like I said, it's about maturity. People die immature. Maturity and age are not the same thing, and you can meet very mature children and incredibly immature 8-year-olds, and so what we're trying to describe is something beyond the human conception. Like, I mean, Aquinas said we can't possibly conceive of what heaven's like. Heaven is a perfect unity with God. It's something that we can't, we get little glimpses of. I mean, they're amazing, those kairos moments in life where we get a little flavor of people call it flow, or there's all sorts of names for this across cultures, across time, but we get a little glimpse of it, and it's like, wow, it's that forever, and we can't conceive of that. And so, but yeah, I don't really want just to make evangelical Christians the butt of every problem. I mean, I don't hate them.
But if it looks like a duck, Father, I mean,
I know. I know they're a good foil for us, and I get that, but I don't want them to feel like I sit at home thinking I want to poke holes in you. But and there are plenty of Catholics who are not very sophisticated.
No, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, it is about relationship.
It would be helpful.
Where I think there's some synergy here, Mark, is meditation and the Buddhist approach to that is about trying to build an integrated relationship with ourselves, where we are and how we conceive of the world. And I think that's really useful. And I think it really is a precondition to understanding our relationship with God, which is utterly beyond that, really. So yeah, I don't object to how you've framed that. I just want to reassert that the whole purpose of the Christian gospel is about how to enter into a perfect relationship with God. That there is a God. God has laid down his precepts and ways, which we understand partially, never fully in this world. And that the whole point is to try to be in harmony with what God wants, not to please God because God's some capricious being that wants to destroy us, but because that's how we will feel most fulfilled, because we've been created in his image and likeness.
Would it be helpful to also address the Eastern Orthodox concept of hell that you were talking about?
There was a saying, Mark. It was something you stimulated a remembrance of a saying that an Eastern Orthodox priest told me. There's a common saying they use in the Orthodox Church. It's easy to be a monk in a monastery, right? Mm-hmm. And what they mean by that is, especially for priests who are in secular parishes in the world, we've got these sort of 6-hour liturgies and all of these spiritual disciplines and very harsh fasts and all the rest of it. But actually, it's a light-hearted way of saying, now, if you're a monk and you've got full-time ability to be devoted to that, that's all well and good. But in the real world, we have to also deal with distractions, with mm-hmm. crises, with feeding ourselves and our families and all that sort of thing. So I don't know whether so I think Eastern Orthodoxy. My experience of it is that they are much more attuned to that need to be totally devoted to the discipline of the faith and of relationship with God and with yourself. But at the same time, there's a sort of acknowledgement that you can't inhabit that space at all times. It's just not possible.
Well,
does that answer your question, Mark?
Spoken like a true Zen. I like it.
I think, number one, is our spiritual practice enabling us to feel comfortable in our own skin? Mm-hmm. Are we appreciating the miracle of life and our lives? Are we able to treat others and ourselves as we would want God or the universe to treat us? These are very, very simple things. I mean, kids know these things. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it simple. If my spiritual practice is making my life more difficult, making me worry more, making me judge more, making me appreciate less, something's off there, right? Yeah. Something's off. But if did you ever meet like a guy, down at the bowling alley, maybe mopping the floor, and he's just a cool dude. Like, he's just a nice guy. He'll give you a shirt off his back. There's some people that are naturally, it could be how they were raised, it could be genetics, whatever, but they're just like, I always used to look at these people and say, man, that guy seems so smooth, so calm,
they
so
give off a vibe, so to speak. Yeah.
And he really, they really were.
Yeah.
They're not
peaceful,
putting on a show,
mm-hmm.
They're just cool people. They're just being themselves, So for me, when you sit at the wall I kind of leave all my pain there. It's kind of like I leave all my worry there, all my pain there. And then when I get up, I can actually like see that everybody, first of all, I see I'm suffering, just my legs alone are suffering, but I see that I'm suffering. But then when I'm not so wrapped up in my own pain, when it's not a tyrant anymore, and I can actually see through it, I can see that other people are suffering. And I can maybe sometimes, without interfering or trying to go out and be a good guy all the time, because I don't think that's good, I can help people, and that's very fulfilling. And it's just a wonderful, beautiful life, and I appreciate life, and I have a stable existence, and that's as far as I go. I don't go. I think if I'm comfortable and I'm not judging other people, and I'm just being myself and trying to contribute to the whole, to my community as much as I can, I mean, what's there really to worry about, when the final moment comes?
I think you've
Sounds
stumbled
noble to me.
on a point that unites us all, that is very countercultural to our moment in time, which wasn't always the case in the West, which is that there's meaning in suffering. And I actually think that, because I believe that absolutely 100%. I don't know how any Christian can not believe that, given that we believe in a suffering God. But that is so counter to the current age of all Western countries. I don't want to distract, but that's why we end up with voluntary assisted dying. Suffering. Suffering is just an awful thing that has to be avoided at all costs and no matter what. I think no, actually, there's meaning in suffering. And look, this is a hard thing to talk about because some people suffer in ways that are unimaginable, and you think I'm not trying to make light of it. The opposite, actually, I'm trying to say, well, Christians ultimately believe that suffering is redemptive. And again, this is now a really controversial teaching in Western Christianity, but it doesn't make it less true. There is a redemption in suffering. Very few people, like with you, very few people get to the point where they want to change their lives without a bit of suffering thrown in. It's the suffering that goes, oh my goodness, I've got to change. Something has to give.
That's what gets you staring at a wall. It's
what
the
moves
suffering.
you.
Yeah, that's what actually gets you. And it's the suffering
and that's
brings
why it's
you
redemptive.
To help other suffering people, because you can empathize with them.
Yeah, the pain you go through helps you with someone else who's going through the pain you've already been through. So you're able to help them through the process. And that's ultimately what we're here for, is to help each other.
Right. And I think at its heart, religion, spirituality in any sense, or if you look at it from a scientific perspective, the highest evolution of balance in the universe is compassion or kindness, or however you want to label it, because it promotes peace. Because if you can empathize with someone, you can make peace with them. Because
I think what compassion is even more than that. Compassion is proof that the atheists are wrong. That evolution is a process, but compassion actually goes against evolution, right?
Well, see, I can go back to, I'm always getting original sin. And then I say, well, wait a minute, compassion is human nature as well.
Absolutely. and it's counter-evolutionary. You've described that you help people who've got dementia and that's actually, evolution would say, oh, they're broken now, they die.
I argue that in terms of evolution, compassion is most practical.
I'm talking about Darwinian evolution.
Yeah, if we want to sustain our planet Earth, we're going to have to start being compassionate to metal hooks, as well as one another.
I got you.
Because this planet is a living, breathing thing. It's a bigger pocket of balance than us, And without air, we take air for granted. That's another beautiful thing about meditation. I started learning from air Like air's got this primordial wisdom that you would never really hear or become familiar with unless you focused on it, like your breath. You're bringing air.
That's another point of contact with Eastern Orthodoxy, by the way. Like I was very, very fortunate. I had Metropolitan Callistos Ware as one of my lecturers at Oxford, and he's written and well, he's dead now, but he's written and lectured on the Jesus prayer, and it's really as a meditation that involves breath. In fact, to the point where he says, "Don't try this until someone is coaching you, because you'll end up in hypoxia." But very much about the breath, and we said last week on the show, the word we use for the Holy Spirit is pneuma, right? It's Greek for breath. In Hebrew, ruach, wind. And so anyway, sorry, I interrupted you, but I like that point of connection.
Yeah, and so air, without air, there's nothing. There's no Jesus, there's no Bible, there's no Buddha, there's no nothing without air, but it's invisible. So it's everywhere, unless we live in a polluted city, then, or we're sick, then if we have a pulmonary problem, then we really start to notice our air, right? We don't start to notice things until there's a problem. If we notice our air, right, we're actually coming into contact with something that's invisible, like this invisible reality all around us, right? And then if we start realizing how our air can actually help us, I mean, we need it to even function, so it helps us whether we acknowledge it or not. But when we acknowledge it, that's when things get cool. That's literally
stuff starts to slow down.
Cool. Well, you start to notice your breath, like when you're upset or when you're nervous, and then you learn how to regulate it. But it's not, it's the air teaching you how to breathe it properly. It's not necessarily you doing it. It's the air. So
it's like they teach us in martial arts, where you use your breath to center yourself, focus yourself, and it also slows you down so you can go through the kata or the exercise flawlessly without even thinking about it.
There you go. It's just
Do you think, Mark, your background in the military, being a person that was exposed to an exceptional amount of discipline that the average civilian would never go through, do you think that helped prepare you for the life that you live now, or is it quite the opposite? Did you see it as more of a challenge to overcome of your internal nature?
I see it both ways.
Oh, do you?
In some ways it was a challenge, but the breath to a Marine is extremely important when we're firing our weapon, when we're in ambush, not moving.
Yeah.
Fire on the exhale.
Yeah, so all of that stuff was already ingrained in me, and it certainly made meditation seem not as hard as it might to someone else. So I certainly give credit there on the discipline end. But in other ways, I'm a Marine.
How to come down from that, right?
I'm from Philly. I'm a Marine, right? I was in the Teamsters Union, and I was a bookie. Like I worked for a guy named Big Sween.
Man, you're gonna have stories.
Yeah, Big Sween worked for the Italians. And my dream when I got out of the Marines was to be a pagan, an outlaw biker. And I was serious about it. Like, until they did it's called a gut check, which is they make you stay up for a couple of days on meth and coke. And basically it's like hell. Yeah. And I never went back. But my point is if a dude like me can talk to air and appreciate the universe and appreciate my life and actually be able to have a little purpose and help people, which is a very fulfilling thing to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, anybody can do it. You know, believe me, I'm a messed up guy.
The Royal Marines in England can't relate because they've got gills.
They are crazy. I got in big trouble hanging out with them. They took me up on a helicopter drunk and held me by my legs out.
That sounds about
the
right.
The worst thing they ever did to me, the British Royal Marines, is they take a hamburger and the first guy chews it. He takes it out, gives it to, and then it came around to me after like 8 guys. Oh man, I still have nightmares about that. And then I got in trouble. They got me so drunk that I ended up insulting a German captain in NATO. But I
oh well.
Well, I asked him, hey, look, any family members in the Nazi party, and he was like, no. And I said, yeah, every German I asked says no.
Yes,
man, I caused an international incident, but I'm blaming it all on the British Royal Marines because they are completely insane.
British people in general can drink far too much, is true.
Yeah, they can drink more than me, that's for sure.
You haven't met a Russian in a cafe in Korea. I was stationed in Korea in the military in the 90s, and we were doing some kind of joint exercise, and there was, I think he was originally from Russia. Let's not talk about drinking under the table.
Soju will kill you.
Soju. Yeah, I've got soju stories. So you just kind of sparked some memories, Mark. The Army's just as crazy.
I have a lot of stories. You know,
some we probably can't talk about.
But anyway, the point is if people like us can see the miracle of life and have, you know, a spiritual practice and be relatively open-minded. I mean, I'm not joking. I didn't know what to expect coming on here tonight.
I actually think it is people like us that do that, Mark. I honestly think it is people like us that end up in that situation. I was a cop. I was a riot policeman in London, and you know, so I know so many policemen now that have become priests. Or I think
we want that peace,
opposite, right? Because they tend to be very sort of secular minded. You know, very cynical. Like you deal with everyone at their worst, and all of that. And I am all of that. I'm still all of that. And yet, you know, you're attracted to the antidote. so I actually, and I've known like monks from Mount Athos, so in the Eastern Orthodox Church, that's the holy mountain, right? They're before they went to Mount Athos, they weren't like Mount Athos monks. They were from, you know, dysregulated backgrounds, let's say. So I think it actually is people like us that end up. I think it's harder if you've got this kind of, you know, nice stable existence, you know, and nothing really bad or that good happens to you. I think it's much harder to see your need for utter dependency on the world if you want to look at it from a Buddhist perspective, or from God if you want to look at it from a Christian perspective.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how far into the darkness you go. You know, you gotta
be careful.
Is there room to get out? You know?
Always have an exit.
I don't know how many of us truly crazy outlaw, biker, teamster, Marine are. I don't see many of us still around. Most of the guys I was in with,
if you make it,
have passed. Yeah. So, I think that's another reason I appreciate my life. It's like, how the heck? I thought I'd be dead at 30 for sure, you know, and I wasn't just whistling Dixie. I was, you know, I really didn't think I would be alive past 30, because talk about somebody whose mind was racing and, you know, serious PTSD. And I stared at a 9mm for 2 years. You know, instead of a wall, I stared at a loaded gun. You know?
I'm glad you picked the wall, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess the point is in order to turn direction, so to speak, or go toward, what did you say? You said toward the antidote.
The antidote, yeah.
The antidote, yeah.
Yeah, the antidote is out there. I mean, AA is good at pointing out, you know, that you've got to eventually surrender to a higher power. Now, what you call that, or what that looks like, you know, that's like for me and for our host here, we got to where we are in the weirdest ways. Try a little, it's not a sin if you try something, unless you get too far into it and it's some kind of extreme belief, or, it's okay to experiment, and you'll eventually come back to, what fits best for you.
Your niche.
Yeah, exactly. She's reading my mind. I'm getting scared now.
Yep.
Yeah,
you understand each other.
Everything in
We've
nature
got a similar
has
background, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Everything in nature has a niche,
Yeah.
Every human has a niche. We may not realize it, but if we're here, we play some kind of part that maybe some people, like you were talking about nirvana, or I forget what you were saying. Some people they find their niche, and it's like, wow, okay, cool. So yeah. Some people never find their niche. They never figure out that they're part of something bigger,
Well, I think meditation, I think meditation helps with that. And I think one of the reasons why people struggle so much with, it's what we started the show out talking about, right? I liked what you said, Mark. Don't wait till you're dead to look into the cosmic mirror. You need to start doing that now. I fully agree with that. But I think the reason that most people don't is because they really don't like what they see there. I really think that's reflected in some of the social behaviors that people have. I mean, I think it can be even reduced down to wearing clothing or makeup or, surgery, plastic surgeries and everything else. People like to become something other than what they are, and they like to project an image that is different than what they are, and that becomes a persona that they wear throughout the rest of their lives because there's something missing within, something that disturbs them deep within. And different religions explain this different ways, but ultimately, again, it comes down to exactly the same problem. They don't want to look at themselves. Meditation forces you to look at yourself. But when you do that, when you're willing to actually face the cosmic truth, well, then you can finally maybe find your place, at least as far as the meaning goes here in this particular context, at this particular moment in this thing that we call time. There's function here. And I think really it's not so much about doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing as much as it's about, does it function? If it doesn't function, then there's something wrong. And I think you kind of alluded to that also before. If it does function, well, then let's move in that direction. The direction of function is really what we should achieve. So I think meditation helps us to do that. But perhaps the reason why so many have failed to find themselves is because they're just not willing to even look. And I don't know how you overcome that. I don't like forcing people. I mean, I'm a person that makes the information available. Take it or leave it.
You want to know how you do it?
How you do it?
You got to think little. Don't think big. You just be a cool dude when you're around people and they get curious. They're like, what is up with you?
Yeah.
And that's you got to lead by example. You got to, that's, for me, that's everything. If you're going to be promoting meditation as this calming, balancing, cool thing where you can find your niche, you better be that.
Yeah.
You better actually do that.
Yeah.
And then once you're just yourself, when you do that, then people, it's like God just sends the rain to the lily,
Yeah,
you don't
find
have to
people
do anything.
Yeah, they'll be attracted to you.
Yeah, I got these crazy Vestiges After Dark people who want to talk to me,
You never know, man.
It's like fertilizer. God just sends you people my way. Yeah. No, but I'm really glad. I know we're running short on time, but I really appreciate what you guys are doing and your perspective and the openness that you have in your understanding of your own faith. I think it's so important. I wish I could do more interfaith stuff. I really do.
Well, you're doing good work now.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate that too. I mean, honestly, that's what this show is, right? I mean, look, I grew up with Christian rigidity, all the way up to here. It was just, it reaches a point where I have to either let it drive me out, which it did a couple times, or I have to find a way to deal with it, which I prefer to do. I don't like being defeated by things. So running away never felt right, and it wasn't right, but, I always found my way back to it. But I had to still come to terms with, well, how do I deal with this? And so it really came down to the framework. There aren't churches that are teaching the right stuff. They teach what they know, and they teach their own particular perspectives on these ancient texts and what they mean, and they're really concerned with getting people to believe in something. I throw all that stuff out, and see, that's where Buddhism helped me become a better Christian, is that I don't need belief. Belief was never part of the equation for me. What I needed was was experience. I needed to be able to cultivate, and even in the word, if you look at the ancient Greek, when it talks about faith, the word is pistis in Greek. What it means is not to believe in something; it's to have absolute, confident conviction enough to act upon it. Is what it means. Very
also,
different.
It's written into a world where nobody didn't believe in God. Like this is a very postmodern luxury belief that there's no God. It really is.
It is. I mean, it's true.
A God, and everybody knew that. So, of course, in the first century AD, they're not going to talk about belief as whether you believe in God or not. The assumption is everybody believes in God because it's bloody obvious, and yet you have to go through some very, very stupid lessons of human endeavor to end up in postmodernity, where people can think that they can sit back with their Chardonnay. Oh, I wonder if I believe in God today or not. It's like, it's so ridiculous. Like sorry, I'm ranting, but that's why having faith, it's about how you orientate that faith. And I think I have very few spiritual gifts. One of them is I can see a real person. I can see the reality of a person I'm speaking to. And that's why I can tell when I'm speaking to somebody who's just an ideology, like they've just got this ideology that's speaking for them.
Wait, are you trying to tell me something?
Yeah. But you're actually not speaking to them. They've got all this ideology or stuff that they've heard or been told.
Yeah, it's the same way in Buddhism. It's, there's a little retreat center not far from here that I did some work in, and it was just all these cliche terms, and you just knew that the person using them, I try not to judge. I do.
It's not about judgment. It's about helping them discern, right? Because going back to what you said about, you end up in these dark spaces, because well, you can either take the Nietzschean view and say, you stare into the abyss and the abyss will stare back at you, and then all you do is stare at your 9mm and think, do I pull the trigger or not? That's got us off TikTok. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But
what is he talking about?
or you take, what would be a more Jungian view. This is what Jordan Peterson said this, famously, and I think he's right. Or you can stare into that darkness and then see that in fact at the very darkest place there is light, and that's the journey. That's the journey that brings you to fruition of the human experience of going through the darkness but actually coming to light, and in that light there is a man on a cross, right? But and then you begin to see that, like Luther said, rather than that grotesque image being something repulsive, it becomes something which gives you hope and joy, actually, ultimately, through that suffering. And so, and even like I say, I've got very few spiritual gifts, but on a very superficial conversation with people, I can discern where they are on that path, and not in a way to kind of manipulate, but in a way to think, how can am I the right person to help them further down that path or not? And not suggesting I've made it either.
Question, that's the important question.
Yeah,
but you can
and oftentimes
tell,
I'm not.
And it's hard not, the hardest thing is to catch ourselves when we're judging, because as soon as you catch yourself judging, you're no longer judging anymore. You're judging, kind of yourself, and that enables you to listen more and to see what's in front of you and maybe help someone if you can, But it's okay. Sometimes you can't help, and you got to distance yourself from someone. So if we're looking for success stories, if we're looking for appreciation, if we're looking for reward and good luck, we're in the wrong business.
Isn't that the truth?
My only aim for myself and to help with other people is authenticity, because like we said, God's not offended when I get God wrong, right? But authenticity is what leads to an integrated life that can be a benefit to you and the people around you. If you've got that authenticity, then even when you're wrong, if you have authenticity, then you're more likely to correct that at an earlier stage.
Yeah, because you're not speaking from fear and pain and judgment and all that.
You're not letting someone else speak through you. Like, that you've read a book and all of a sudden you're saying these things and this isn't you. This isn't you. This is the last book you read.
Preach on, brother.
And if you've only read one book, we're in big trouble.
Well, if you're going to read one book,
I stopped reading. I really did. I'm unread.
If you're going to read one book, you better read, Just Stare at the Damn Wall. Okay, because
I had to change the name. I had to make a few compromises.
They made you drop the damn.
I took the damn out.
That's too bad.
Then it's no longer
like it.
Just stare at the damn wall. So it's just stare at the wall. And then the subtext is no longer simplify your mind. It's living the universe from where you sit.
Oh, okay.
Which I actually like better. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So I took the damn out just because.
But it's so Zen though. Zen is about shocking enlightenment into you. That that might work.
Well, the logic made sense to me. It's like, why exclude yourself?
Yeah.
Just because of the word damn. Do you really want to reduce your readership to by 50%?
I get it.
Because spiritual seekers, your market, that's not going to really appeal.
You Americans are very sensitive to language. Damn is like my mum would say that.
I know, but I gave in to that one. You got to make some compromises, but I refuse to promise anything. The agent was funny. She's like, okay, you say spirituality is dangerous. You're not an authority figure. You promise them nothing, and you tell them boredom is like the best thing you could the greatest gift. And that they should just turn their attention towards a blank wall. She said, how the hell am I going to sell that?
Go through enough in life and you'll be volunteering for it, lady.
That's right.
The point is I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to help people to stop torturing themselves so much.
Right.
Because I was the king torturer, man. I was like Woody Allen on steroids with a weapon and motorcycle. I was the king of torturing myself, and I don't torture myself anymore.
But that experience is helping you help others. So without all those experiences, you may not have been as effective.
Of course, but like I said, it comes down to
wear your scars proudly.
Do you live?
Mm-hmm.
If you live, man. There's no better feeling than helping other people continue to live,
True that.
Well,
to stop torturing themselves.
Well, we come back to this often on the show is that, because, and again, I'm going to use the foil that I said I wouldn't use, but, evangelical Christians with their obsession with, are you going to hell and all the rest of it. The entire point of God becoming a man is that we can risk living. Because we're allowed to make mistakes because there's a means of forgiveness, and the greatest sin is not whether or not you use the right name for Jesus, Yeshua. We said at the beginning of the show, the greatest sin is the unlived life, and because actually, if you're not willing to take risks to live, what is your faith? A Christian has no excuse if their faith is worth anything, has no excuse from shrinking in for fear of getting something wrong. It's a natural human instinct. But the entire Christian gospel is to open that up and say, no, you can now take risks because you can be forgiven when you screw it up.
We only have 5 minutes left. Can you guys make me an honorary member just in case?
I mean, absolutely. You know what?
All right.
I'll put the paperwork
We
in
need,
for you.
we
Yeah.
want you need to come back on the show.
Yeah, I hope the Lord's listening.
Oh, yeah.
You guys just gave me a pardon.
Now you need to come on and lead us through a meditation.
I'll
We can
even-
do meditation on the air.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I'll
that
write
would be
your
great.
as a bishop. I'll write your indulgence up tonight. How about
There you
that?
go.
Mike?
Yeah, like some sort of special letter that
Yeah.
I can hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Leave him be. He's one of
Put
us.
in Fides.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
just in case.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity, a couple minutes here left, to just tell the audience any way that they can reach out to you, things that you want them to know about, programs you've got, websites, anything like that.
Yeah, I feel really funny promoting myself, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here's the book. I don't know if you could see it,
Oh,
but
hold it closer.
Up at
Hold
the
it in front
top
of
of the
your face.
chat, we have a link to his website, everybody, if you go back up to the top of the
It's on
chat.
Amazon. It's just called Just Stare at the Wall, Mark Blacknell. So you can get that on Amazon. And then there's stareatthewall.org. That's my website, and that kind of shows you some of the work I do, and you can contact me there. And usually, I get back to people personally, so long as they don't send me 7-page emails about their encounter with Buddha. As long as they keep it short and respect my boundaries, I'm willing to help almost anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't want to join this church then, because they'll tell you you'll get books in your email about their encounters with everything. It doesn't matter if it's Jesus, Buddha.
The undercover CIA operation they did in the 80s.
We get a lot of those. Yeah.
That exposed the Illuminati and the Masons. Yeah, I get
Why is it
those.
always the CIA?
I get those
What's wrong
cases.
with MI6? Come on.
Oh, I prefer MI5.
I think James Bond made them more credible to us out here, and the CIA is always the bad guys.
Well, could you do me a favor, though? When you do have me back on, could you book me with a prepper? You know what a prepper is? They're prepping for the apocalypse. That would be fun.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I have to see a
I'm
brand.
sort of a prepper.
April, do you
but
think you could get us a prepper?
I was going to say, Jamie.
Good luck getting him on the air, because
Imagine me with a prepper.
they'll think
That
that's a
would be-
trap.
That would be fun.
That would be kind of fun to watch. I think
Yeah,
so.
they try to talk them out of it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man.
Do not store up your treasures on earth where moth
Yeah.
and scale can get to them.
We
Build
need-
all
we-
your treasures in heaven.
I've been throwing around the idea of a flat earther. That could be fun, but I figure, how could I do it without seeming like I'm an asshole? I just don't know if I could do it, but it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see.
they'd have to have thick skin.
I think preppers, like, the ancient preppers are the pharaohs, right? It's like
Yeah.
Pharaoh's tomb.
Yeah.
I've got everything I need in here, but I'm on my own and I'm dead.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
that's right. They're the original preppers.
I mean,
You're
in a
right.
way, that's true. Well, I want to just thank you, Mark, for being with us tonight. It's been fantastic, and we definitely want to have you back on
Yes,
again.
thank you, Mark.
All right, cool.
Let's do it.
Thank you again. Thank
You're
you,
in,
Father
man.
Chris. Thank you, April. Thank you, Jamie. And thanks to all of you out there who listened tonight, spent your Tuesday evening with us. And we appreciate each and every single one of you. Thanks also to our moderators who
Always.
keep the chats safe. Next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have another brand new guest, Ken Edwards, to talk about Norse paganism and runes. Again, a new subject for this season. You can thank Brandon for all these wonderful topics. He comes up with most of them. But, he gets a lot of them from your suggestions. So we do, again, appreciate our community that participates in not only the life of this show, but the life of this church that actually supports the show. Really, can't say enough about how wonderful all of you are. But that's it. This is it for the show. Again, remember, next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern for our next one. Until then, I'll see you out there in the ether. God bless everyone.
Good night, everybody.